Hello, retro fans! It's actually Christmas time, and this means I got some time off from work, and basically inspired by my recent, let's say, contact with the Nintendo Entertainment System. I remembered that I played Game Boy games in the 90s, more or less often. I was not really addicted to it, but well, spent some time every now and then playing Game Boy games. And so I thought, well, it's perhaps a good moment to kind of rediscover some of the games I have played and to see whether my memory, what I have in mind, how those games were back in the time, is still kind of aligned to how they really are nowadays, and whether they have aged good or not so good. And well, that's basically going to be the main topic of this episode. And just one thing I'd like to mention up front. I have started a poll on YouTube about the next topic of, let's say, the more tech-related episodes. And basically the topic FrameMeister versus RetroTink 2X versus OSSC is in the lead, and I'm working on this topic quite frequently. I have recorded a lot of the content already. I'm still trying to fix my component modded NES, which is still a little bit reluctant to work. I was able to get a picture out of it for a few seconds, so basically it is kind of working, but after those let's say seconds, 20 or 30 seconds or something like this, it switches off and it refuses to come back to life for quite a period of time. So I assume I have some kind of perhaps capacitor issues or some other, let's say, shortcuts on the board, because the power supply voltage drops to 1.4 volt or something like this, but it's supposed to be around 5 volt. And therefore I'm still trying to find what's the problem with this board. And basically the next attempt is that I'm going to desolder the power supply / video converter again and attach this to a different NES board and see whether the behavior is going to be the same. Then I know it's going to be somewhere in the power supply area, or if it's simply working, then I know that the board is broken. I already added this cartridge detection mod here just to be on the safe side. If I have some contact problems or something like this, usually this fixes most of the NES problems you may have. But as I said, it was just working for a couple of seconds and then it went black again. So anyway, this is just for information purpose. I'm really working hard to get this stuff ready to be well uploaded within the next days, hopefully. And then yeah, so much about this stuff, but now I like to talk about something else. As mentioned at the very beginning, it's going to be Game Boy time, and I went to the attic and went through a lot of boxes, and it took quite a while to get most of the stuff I was looking for. Unfortunately, I'm still missing a few pieces here and there, but as I said, most of the stuff I was able to find. And since I was interested in to see what's, let's say, the progression or the evolution of the Game Boy devices, since I stopped at the Game Boy Color back in the time then, I went on eBay and eBay Kleinanzeigen, as we call it here in Germany, some kind of a flea market, and got myself an Game Boy Advanced SP model AGS 101, which is supposed to be the model with the best screen available for those Pocket Game Boys, which are still compatible to the old Game Boy games. That's the most important thing for me. And I already spent some, well, minutes, maybe an hour or so, playing with the Game Boy. But the major thing I was looking for are my old games from the 90s. So, and I got this box full of games, and on the very top we can see it's Dr. Mario, game I have played on the Nintendo NES already, and it's a game I really like. And a lot of people are not so well happy about the game, but I really like it. And as you can see, it's a nice mix of classic games, of Game Boy Color games, and Game Boy Color enhanced games. This is the Top Gear Rally with the Rumble pack. So I think there were just 2 or 3 games using this Rumble technique. And fortunately, I had to change the battery. And fortunately, the old battery was not leaking. So that's very important. And here we can find my old Game Boy Pocket, which is kind of modded. Usually it has a very silver mirroring frame, and this is pretty annoying if you play in daylight, which is basically recommended with those old screens. And so I was covering this mirroring border, and as you can see, this device is a little bit beaten up, so I have used this a lot, lost some of the color here as well. And fortunately I took out the batteries years ago probably, and so I could just simply fit in new batteries, and it was working out of the box directly. And here we can see that the screen is really something that is a bit oldish, but well, it is still kind of playable. It may have some volume. I have to find a good angle so that we have picture without reflection. Oh yeah, it is Tetris, I mean. And this game is indeed a bit more enjoyable in color mode. So I think we are not going to spend too much time with my old Pocket. But I really love this Game Boy Pocket, because compared to the very first Game Boy, this is almost half of the size, at least it feels so. And when I got this one, the color was out of range price-wise, or wasn't even available. So I really love this old Game Boy Pocket, and I spent a lot of time with it back in the 90s. So, and let's dig a little bit deeper. And here we have some of the auxiliaries, and this is basically a lens with some LED light, and this is something you can put on your Game Boy to enhance your vision. And this is probably going to be more complicated to align this with the camera right now. But you may see this is indeed a little bit bigger than without the lens, but it's very hard to capture without the reflection of my LED lights. And I tested whether the LED light is working off this lens, but here I did the mistake and I left the batteries inside, and this is indeed a very messy and very ugly experience. So this is something I really need to clean. As you can see, there are some rust on the contacts as well, so this is going to take a little bit longer than just taking out the batteries and using some tissue to clean this. So I really have to spend a couple of more minutes to this one. So I decided I'm not going to do this right now, but here you can see how dangerous it is to keep the batteries inside those devices and then store them somewhere else. And well, yeah, then let's dig a little bit deeper. And here you may see something I have mentioned in the NES episode as well. I'm a real fan of Drop Zone. I've played this on the C64 a lot, and I got this for the Game Boy Color, and it's very, very addictive. For a little bit hard to play on those small screens, but we will have a, let's say, short test how it looks on the Game Boy Advance SP. And well, digging a little bit deeper, there we have Bart Simpson's Escape from Camp Deadly. I can't remember that I have played it so much, so maybe this was some kind of a donation or a present or something like this I got later, but I have absolutely no memory that I have played this back in the 90s. And then we got another color game with a buffer battery. I'm really interested to see whether the battery is still working, and I may have to replace this when I'm able to find the bits I have ordered and lost, what I have mentioned in the NES episode already. But well, this is going to be very interesting. And oh, I went over this. That's R-Type Dx. Oops. Game Boy Color game, well, with R-Type. So really interested in to see how this looks like and if it can keep up with the R-Type versions we know from C64. Perhaps not the Amiga, but it's going to be a hard challenge to, well, stand against Amiga graphics anyway. So, and Tetrax Tetris Dx, that's the color version. I have played this very, very often, and I think it's a battery buffered game as well, keeps the high score. And a friend of mine and I were really challenging each other for the high score. So this was really something I have played a lot. And then, as well, usual classic game, Galaga and Galaxian. And as you can see, I have sticky notes on the back where I have written down the high score and the level, because this game is not able to save the high score or to store the high score in the module. And this was my method back in the 90s to keep track of my progress. And as you can see, Galaga, I made it to level 14 with 92,730 points or something like this. So it looks like I haven't played Galaxian that much, but well, Galaga was my favorite. And there's another game with posted on the back, and it says full on zoom, so it looks like this game has two game modes, and this is Mrs. Pacman. And yeah, right, this is either using this the full view of the labyrinth, or it is using some kind of scrolling screen, and therefore I wrote down the points for the different game modes. I'm really interested in to see how this is going to look like on the Game Boy Advance, because the Color and the Advance, they have some kind of recolor mode. And the interesting thing, I wasn't aware back in the 90s that this is adjustable, or maybe I just forgot it, I don't know. But this is a way to recolor black and white games. And the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, whatever, they use some kind of technique to detect whether those objects are movable or something like this, and then they get a different color. So this is really, really clever to play the old games on these newer systems. And then this is just Game Boy Advanced game I got with the Advanced, so that's Disney's Treasure Planet. It's some kind of well, roaming around doing things game. I just played some minutes with this one, so this is not my main interest. And then we got Oddifanten. And this is probably a game nobody knows outside Germany, because this is very, very unique. And as you can see, I have a post-it on the back with level codes, and I got even more level codes on this Atari Portfolio cartridge, which is absolutely not related to the Game Boy at all, but it's chess for the Atari Portfolio. And perhaps I'm going to have an Atari Portfolio episode somewhere in the future, because I got this device as well, plus some peripheral devices, and it's a very cool pocket computer. But as I said, it's not going to be topic of this episode, but I got even more level codes for Oddifanten. And if you have no idea what Oddifanten are, it's basically, nowadays we would call him a comedian, and he's called Otto Walkes, and he's very kind of well known, maybe not famous, but he was doing stand-up comedian things in the 80s, 90s, and he has created this kind of brand Oddifanten, which is basically a comic, and is about baby Bruno and his teddy bear. And I was a little bit surprised. I remember that I have played this game a lot because it's very addictive, and we will have a short glance at the game as well. But I was a little bit surprised when I went through our archive pictures when I was searching for my Game Boy games, that I have 2 action figures. Maybe not really action figures, but this... Oh, sorry. May have to... It's a little bit big. Wasn't expecting that they're so huge. So this is baby Bruno. And this is his teddy bear. And in this game, the teddy bear got lost by kind of hijacking or, well, kind of how to call this, the guy at the circus doing magic tricks, magician, I don't know. And baby Bruno is in search of his teddy bear. So so much about my action figures for baby Bruno. And as I said, I was a little bit surprised that I have those, but well, basically I was perhaps a little bit addicted to it. And then last but not least, I have the cover of International Karate, and it's really a little bit sad that I can't find the cartridge for it, but I think there's a reason, because here's a Game Boy Color without anything inside. And the reason is that I took this apart somewhere in the, well, late 90s, 2000 something or so, and placed just the PCB with the screen and the batteries on my desk as some kind of a decoration or something like this. And I think that I added the International Karate cartridge to it because it has some kind of attraction mode or something like this. But I went through a lot of boxes at my attic, and we went through all those archive pictures, but I was not able to find the missing parts of this Game Boy Color, which is indeed a little bit sad, because I was really interested in to compare this with the Game Boy Advance, yeah, so I mix this up with this arcade stick for the NES, which is called Advantage. So I really have to remember Game Boy Advance SP. So yeah, so we can't have a look at this, and I really have to take more time to find this, or perhaps I go and simply order in GBC at eBay, because they are pretty cheap, and I wouldn't care about the beaten up case, because I got one, and well, but I have to find this international karate game. So let's put this back. I think we got everything we need. This is just a manual for the Olifanten game. Here we can see it a little bit bigger, and yep, that's this stuff. So let's put this aside. This is something I really have to take apart and clean it. And surprisingly, I have just 2 cases for my Game Boy games, and we already had this Game Boy Pocket, but let's have a look at the Olifanten in black and white or grayscale, and then let's have a look on it in color. So on off. So contrast tweaking was a major thing we had to do with those old devices. And we can play this in different languages. Let's go for English. There's kind of an excessive story. Here we can see that guy at a circus, call it magician, strange word. Yeah, put this teddy bear into his head, and then it is kind of trapped, and baby Bruno was not hesitating and jumped just to rescue his teddy bear. So, can change the direction of this controls, music on off, and password, what we have seen on this stickers. But let's start from the very beginning. And now we can see how this game is pretty dark. So let's see whether we can adjust this a little bit. So, and we can move around. We have a lot of traps, as you can see, and we have some power-ups where we can collect those little bottles, which we can see at the... Oh, already left the level. That wasn't my attention, but anyway. And here we can see we have some spikes and some traps, and here I think we have to walk around those leaves. And at the beginning it is a little bit tricky. Oh, they disappear. Oh. It's a little bit tricky to get used to this isometric view. But after a while it works quite fine, and we get some practice with the levels. But I can tell you, on the Game Boy Color and especially on the Game Boy Advance, it looks much better than this. And I remember that I played the game a lot on the Game Boy Color, so must have been to a later time when I got this. And let's have a look how it looks like on this one. And here we got a problem that the display has some own light, and now we have to kind of adjust this to my desk light. So actually it looks quite fine. Now we have the same intro, just in color, and I think it looks already amazing. And we can test something as well. If we stretch it to full screen, it destroys the aspect ratio, unfortunately, but it is a little bit bigger and I just wish they would scale it in height as well. But yep, I'm not going to complain too much about it. So, switch off the music. And here we can see it looks much better in color. And here we can see that the coloring is really some kind of intelligent, since it's not just putting colors to certain gray values, it really is assigning colors to objects, and therefore we have some kind of orange baby Bruno and some whitish kind of, well, call it enemy or something like this. And while starting up the Game Boy, we can adjust the color palette as well, and I may have to look whether there are better options or if it's just something that works like it is already. Oh, jumped too late. So it starts quite easy, but gets a little bit harder after several levels. But yeah, that's a very, very nice game. So, not spending too much time with this one, let's go for Top Gear Rally and see how this Rumble pack is working. So, I have to get used to it that the games are put in on the bottom of the device, not on the top. So, and all those older games, they stick out quite widely, and compared to the standard Game Boy, where we kind of, well, insert the game almost completely into the device. It is, especially with this game, a little bit odd. So it's a very long device right now. So I might have to adjust brightness a little bit. Let's dim the lights a bit. It's either reflection or it's kind of dark. So the rumble is already working, and that's probably something that's hard to transfer by video, but every time the tires are kind of losing grip or we make some jumps, then this whole thing is rumbling. And it is quite interesting that they put in a very huge motor. Oh, some opponents on the street. To create a rumble effect, if we compare this to actual smartphone technology, and we compare especially the rumble effect, let's see whether we can see this on the camera. If you pay attention to the bottom of this cartridge, you can see that there's a small motor. Well, it's basically not very small, and this is creating this rumble effect, and this is basically just two different... Oh, it's blocking me. Just two levels of the effect, so it's weak and strong, but even strong is still a bit weak. I have replaced the battery already, so it's not an issue of the battery. Oh, wasn't paying attention. But you can see quite clearly how this is going to work, and you can feel an effect. So it is a cool addition to the game, but it's probably not really changing the whole experience that much that you would say it's a must-have. Anyway, so much about Top Gear Rally with the Rumble Pack. Very cool thing. And then let's check whether Super Mario Bros. Deluxe has still some memory. Unfortunately, the colors are not so nice on the camera, so it looks much better in reality, I can promise. So that's probably something I have to work on, how to capture Game Boy screens in a much better way. Original Challenge versus Records Toy Box Album. So, there is on place number 5 is Duke, which is basically my nick, and therefore it looks like it has remembered some game progress and some scores. And we have some pictures here as well. Oop. So then let's have a look how it looks like. Select file. Yeah, oh, we can select files and can continue. So let's start from the very beginning. Oh, this was stupid. Okay. Oh. May have to pay attention to the screen a little bit, because it's a little bit laggy on my OBS preview. Ah. Well, beside this, it plays like Mario. Oh. I think we haven't expected anything else, but the game has stored my progress and some of the high scores, so, well, those batteries are kind of enduring. Let's see what we have next. So, Mrs. Pacman, that was the thing with the scrolling. Tetris Dx R-Type, probably going to be interesting. And, well, Drop Zone, yes. So, let's see whether we can have a look at those games. And, yeah, some high scores on the back. I may have to renew those sticky notes. So we can one player. This looks like the scrolling mode. And this is a little bit hard to play because we can't see whether there is some ghost coming or not. So this requires some kind of memory where they could be. So let's see how we can change this. Whether we can get out of the game anyway. No. Looks like we have to die a couple of times to start over again. Ah, no. This looks ugly. I'm surprised that it's so dark. Yeah, crank up this a little bit. Arcade hard. So. Ah, okay. Let's have a look at this. Ah, now we got a full labyrinth view. Which is indeed a little smaller, but I think this is more like the original gaming experience. Ah! It's indeed not the proper way to play Pacman, but well, that's the best I can do while talking. Would be nice to play it in this size, but this stretched image looks a bit odd. So that's perhaps not a very suitable game for this kind of screen mode. So, yeah, Mrs. Pacman, very nice. Let's move on to Drop Zone. I'm very surprised to see that all of the games we have tested so far are working. And yeah, that's a Gameboy Color game. It looks indeed better than the other ones. We have this classical Drop Zone intro. And crank up the volume a little bit. We may have some sound effects as well. Oh, this looks not so bad in widescreen. Oh. Oh. But as I said, it's a little bit hard to play on those small screen with this controls. So everybody is rescued. Oops. Oh, they shoot at me. I have to check the angle. Game over. Your rank is not listed. Okay. It may need some practice, but well, I think it looks quite okay in widescreen. Well, this is the original and this is the widescreen. So it's really playable, and colors and the representation is very nice, I have to say. Then let's move on to R-Type. So far I have to say, well, most of the games are really like I have them in memory or in mind or whatever you want to call it. And oh, it looks like that's the first game that's not working. So we may have some contact issues, even missing the screw. And there's no game at all. Okay. So I have perhaps removed this for the same purpose. But, well, interesting to see that I put the cartridge back in my box without the electronics. And I have no idea how to open them. Ah, okay, it's like this. Yeah, no game inside. That's sad. I really have to find a box where this stuff is stored. So then let's go for Tetris as color version. And let's see whether there are still some high scores. Entry. Change name. Ah, no, it looks like it's empty. So this game forgot my players and my data. This is a bit pity. I'm not even sure whether it's possible to change the battery without losing the data, if it keeps it for at least a few minutes. But let's see if it is possible to store new data on it. So I just start over again. That was a bad decision, I have to admit. A bit screwed up now. And it's not getting better. Well, that's not going to be my best game, anyway. So, well, looks like I need some practice. Nope. Not ideal. Really have to get rid of this stuff on top here. So that was really kind of a bad start. But really the screen is fantastic. So that's really one thing I have to say about it. Wasn't very smart. It's a little bit hard to talk and play Tetris, I have to say. It's kind of challenging. Especially when I'm trying to recover from such a bad start. Let's put it here. Now we're running out of space. Now it's really going to be a little bit tricky to get this game back on track. Anyway, I think let's call it a game and quit this. So this looks very nice. Not in stretched mode perhaps, but well. My first high score. So let's see whether we switch it off and back again and on again. If my score is still there or if I have to replace the battery. Oh, it's still there. Okay, cool. So, very nice. Then, what's left? Got Super Mario. R-Type isn't working. Got Dr. Mario. Let's see whether Dr. Mario has some interesting colors. I remember that this game is a little bit hard to play on the Game Boy because those monsters are not very distinguishable. And let's see how this looks in color. Oh, they're just white and black and grayish. So they do not have any colors. But I may have to check whether those recoloring palettes are working here. At least the screen has good amount of contrast, and this makes this game indeed much more playable than on the color on the grayish screens. Not perfect. I think the major critics about this game is that it becomes very hard quite quickly. And if you really start with a very high amount of monsters and the game speed is already quite incredible, then it is really hard to challenge. But really hard to master. But I've seen on YouTube a video quite recently, and some guy was really playing this at level 20 at full speed, and this is really amazing to see that it is possible. But well, I think practice is doing the trick, and yeah, I think so much about Dr. Mario. The story behind this, and as usual, there's always some kind of story. There's a PC clone, I think was for Windows or for DOS, I'm not sure, which is called Dr. Rudy, and the game principle is the very same. And we played this game, I think, before we even knew that there's an original available for Nintendo systems. And yeah, as I said, we played this very often on the PC, and my wife and myself, we challenged each other with this game, and therefore, well, I got some practice with this one, and it's really nice to see the original. So, almost done with this one. Just some stuff we don't need. And here we go. So, I think let's give Bart Simpson a last test, and then we have reached the end of this video, which is already quite long, as usual, but it is very cool to go through this childhood memories. Well, it's not really childhood because it was in the 90s and I was already a little bit older than 20 years or so, I have to admit. And here we got some issues with the game. It's not starting. Let's have a look inside. Yeah, there is some cartridge still in there. Now it looks much better. But it's really cool to see that on the Game Boy we have the same issues like on the NES. So this is a kind of common theme for Nintendo devices. I have no idea. But well. Okay, the title melody is perhaps not as good as we may want it. It's muted by the microphone, so I can hear it just only when I... But it has some nice colors. Cool. Oop. Was telling me something. Black Capture Team S, Bart Simpson, Team B, everybody else. Team A, Bart Simpson. Okay, no spit words. So his reddish eyes are looking a little bit strange. Oh, we got some Dicky tunes. Cool! I wasn't aware that the Game Boy is able to play digitized voices and effects. Well, I'm still trying to figure out what's going to be the purpose of the game. Ah, we can't go back, okay. Because those guys are so fast. Can't outrun them. So well, yeah. Eat my shot? Ay caramba. Okay, that's a little bit hard to understand. So, okay. This is Bart Simpson on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP AG 101, just to be precise. And yeah, it's a very interesting device. I mean, size-wise, it's not that much bigger than the Pocket. And it's a little bit heavier, so you can feel the battery. And especially with this older games, it is indeed a bit bigger than if you're going to use original games designed for the Game Boy Advance SP. But that's basically not the main reason why I got this device. I really want to play my old games. And I think this is absolutely acceptable to have this kind of format. I mean, if you have a look inside of those cartridges, most of them do not require that much space. Anyway, it's just perhaps here for this Super Mario Bros. That comes with the battery, but most of the cartridges were almost this size. Anyway, and yeah, the screen really looks fantastic. So what I have seen on YouTube, that people were saying that this is the best screen possible. It's probably true. It looks fantastic. It has almost no, how do they call this, lag or something like this, or ghosting or something. Forgot the name of the effect. So it's really crystal clear, and even with my older eyes, I'm able to see enough on this quite small screen. And for some games, you can play them in widescreen mode, and then the picture appears much bigger. As I said, unfortunately, they're not stretching the picture in height, that's just in width. So that's probably an opportunity that would make those games even more playable if we have the stretch in height as well. Then the aspect ratio wouldn't be so screwed like it is right now. But as you can see, we can change this on the fly, basically. Yep. And so you can adapt this to your own purpose. And we have two brightness levels, standard and very bright. And I have to admit that playing it at standard is already good enough. It's just for the camera. It comes a bit better with max brightness level. And if you play this under daylight conditions, even then it looks very nice. And compared to the older devices, especially to the Gameboy Color without backlight mod, which is probably something I will test, I'm not sure. It is much more playable under low light conditions, so to say. Anyway, so much about my Game Boy games experience after about 20 years, almost. Yeah, more than this, probably, yeah. And except for the Bart Simpson game, which I can't remember that I played this ever. I'm very happy. I have to admit that most of the games are really looking like I have them in mind. So, and there's probably not that much aging or something like this, as we call this for the older games. And yeah, I'm really happy, and I'm looking forward to have some, well, relaxing hours playing old Game Boy games. So that's all for this episode. Already long enough, as I said. Thanks very much for watching, and if you have any ideas, suggestions, something like this, games I should try, and games that are a must-have for the older as well as for the newer Game Boys, then feel free to use the comment section. And well, you can even mention if you're interested in to see more Nintendo-related stuff. I mean, it's basically a C64 channel. And I really want to come back to C64 related topics, but there are so many other interesting retro topics that every now and then I have to kind of leave the path for a while, but I promise I will come back. And just a very last note, on the 15th of December, Chuck Peddle died. Peddle, I think, died. That's the creator, the godfather of the 6502 CPU IC, which is living in a lot of different devices like the C64 as a 6510 and as a very modified version in the Nintendo Entertainment System, for example. So, and a lot of other different systems. So, but he was more than 70 years old, forgot the number, and therefore I think it is very worth to remember his work. And sadly, but unavoidable, people die. This is something we can't change, but it is really outstanding what he has created, and therefore it is indeed worth mentioning. So that's all for today. As I said, feel free to use the comment section, feel free to support my channel by subscribing to it, by maybe going to Patreon and supporting me there, or by joining the channel membership here on YouTube. This will give you more control over the content, since I have created a certain levels of influence, let's say. And I even have prepared the first preparation videos, what I have promised in the channel membership, so that you can see what I do up front an episode. It's not that I just sit down, press the button and start. There's a lot of work ahead of an episode already. And I covered this in some kind of behind the scenes videos. And there you can see how much work it is to, well, create an episode. And well, that's all. I wish you a very nice Christmas time. I hope you see this video somewhere around Christmas. Anyway, and then as promised, the next episode hopefully is going to be the FrameMeister versus RetroTink 2X versus OSSC video. I may squeeze in a small video because I have received Christmas presents or Christmas present, and I'm going to unbox this and see what's going to be inside. And that's, well, the plan for the next days or week, so to say. Then, as usual, thank you very much for watching and see you for the next episode. Bye bye.